Known for its absurd plot, frantic pacing, expressive animation, and phenomenal soundtrack, the 6-episode Fooly Cooly has always been a cornerstone of comfort for me. It's one of those shows that I'll return to when I'm feeling down and I want something to bring me back up. Given the less than 3-hour runtime, it makes itself very easy to get through in the event of a spontaneous rewatch. It's always been a favorite of mine, and it feels like every time I watch it, I find something that sticks out to me that hadn't before. In my most recent viewing, what stood out to me wasn't any of the aforementioned traits or even that emotional uplifting I was looking for. Instead, it was Naota and his relationship with Mamimi and Haruko, more specifically, the exploitation and general disregard they have for him. Naota is ran through an emotional roller coaster from these two, but despite everything that happens, he comes out at the end with growth instead of resentment. I'll be going into extreme detail, so I'll be spoiling a lot if that matters to you. There's the obligated spoiler warning. In the very beginning, we're introduced to Mamimi and Naota, learning who they are in this current moment of their lives. Mamimi could be summarized as expressive and eccentric. Expressive from how animated she is, and eccentric from her dialogue being a fourth wall-breaking reference. Pretty straightforward. For Naota, I feel it isn't as obvious. He has his back to us doing his homework. When he's asked, why not do it at home, he replies, because it isn't cool. This is a weird thing to say, but it does kind of show how Naota is or how he can be. It comes off as someone that has this image they want to uphold, a way he wants to present himself. This isn't the only example of this either. This same kind of attitude is shown whenever he goes on about adults not being mature or refusing to grow up. What these little bits say to me is that he has this concept of what being an adult is. Naota, in this current moment, tries to put on an image of who he wants to be. Kind of blasé, uninterested, or nonchalant. He's posturing himself to try to appear what he believes should be considered mature. It's performative, it's inauthentic, it's kind of obvious to certain people that he's a bit of a tryhard. Juxtaposed to him, we have Mamimi, who comes off as genuine, natural, authentic. Even with how childish, dumb, or gullible she is, she's more mature than Naota because of this authenticity. After this small exchange about his homework, Mamimi becomes physically affectionate towards him. Naota shows some reluctance, but doesn't fully object. Later at school, with his newly made Hickey, he tells us that it's normal for him to meet with her like this. I infer this means that the physical intimacy is also a regular thing, that what we saw is just another day. This is where their dynamic becomes complicated. For starters, relatively speaking, there is a significant age gap between the two. Naota is at the end of his elementary school years and Mamimi towards the end of her high school years. A cosmic level of difference for emotional and developmental maturity. So how did these two get involved with each other in the first place? The connection is Naota's older brother, Tasuku. Tasuku never actually makes a physical appearance in the anime, but the impact he's left is peppered throughout it. He's gone to the United States to play professional baseball, and the only actual word we see from him is in this photo. The impact he's left is imprinted on the people he was around, ranging from their grandfather's baseball team, Naota himself, to, most prominently, Mamimi. Though we never actually meet him, or ever see what any relationship with him was like, the anime still finds ways to show us his importance and influence. At the end of the first episode, when Haruko domes Kanti in the back of the head, Naota says to us that in that moment, she reminded him of his brother. Maybe it was the swing or her expression. Maybe it's because she does anything at all. Later, when the city's fate is left entirely up to Naota, he cries out to his brother just before swinging. It doesn't seem like a far-fetched thing to say that Naota looks up to his brother. I think being in his grandfather's team, along with carrying around a bat, shows how much Tasuku has influenced him. As for Mamimi, their relationship began when the old elementary school was burnt down. This is how and when she met Tasuku. We learned that it was arson, and the arsonist was none other than our eccentric girl herself. I'm sure the reason for the crime was due to the bullying she was experiencing, which we learn is something she still deals with today. It's also heavily implied that Mamimi has romantic feelings for Tasuku. This is why Naota tells her that they should stop doing what they sometimes do. I've always had the assumption that Tasuku assumed some kind of big brother role for her, that he brought stability or hope to her. I assume this because she's so fixated, if not obsessed with him. What we're shown and told about Mamimi's life paints a grim picture. Bullied so much during her elementary years that she resorts to burning the school down, to still being bullied today, causing her to again resort to arson. We don't learn anything about her home life other than her coming from a poor household. Tasuku might have been one of the only good things she had, which now she doesn't have at all. Naota even asks her if she's received any word from his brother, which we never get an answer to. I think it's safe to assume she hasn't heard anything. I think it's safe to assume that Tasuku has fully moved on. Understanding how significant Tasuku is to Mamimi and Naota is important to understanding their relationship. They're both at radically different places in their lives. Naota is in the early stages of puberty and finishing elementary school. Mamimi is finishing high school and entering young adulthood. But here they are, together, because of Tasuku. I've always thought that Naota was trying to take responsibility for Mamimi, as if he had to take the place his brother had left. I think what she does to him reinforces this idea, lounging around together, kissing his neck or ears, to even calling him Takun, her nickname for Tasuku, which leads me to why I've brought up everything up to this point. From my impression, Mamimi has had a very difficult life and I feel for her on that, but I want to make something very clear. I do not think this justifies how she is towards Naota. I believe Mamimi is in general abusive and overall a detriment to him. Her actions convince me that she doesn't care about Naota the same way that he cares about her. He shows concern for her well-being, her mood, and his mood can be affected by hers. Now, with that said, Naota does show interest in her qualities, but he also shows reluctance given that he knows how much she cares for his brother. Yeah, we do see him being complicit to her, showering him with affection, but Naota is literally a kid. The show makes it a point to have so many characters poke fun at him for his age and his level of projected maturity. When you mix together the image of himself he tries to uphold, the age he's at, and his brother's influence, it results in him being complicit to Mamimi's actions. This, to me, makes sense. Now, she does spend time with him and gets affectionate to him, but this is really for her own gain. She isn't doing it to show appreciation or love, but instead to use him as a proxy for Tasuku. I mean shit, she calls Naota Takun all the time. It's literally the nickname she has for his older brother. She didn't even give Naota his own nickname. Even then, her use of Takun isn't completely sacred. She eventually finds a kitten and calls that Takun, then gets this little robot and calls that Takun. Across the 6 episodes, there are a total of 4 different Takuns. This is why I think, first of all, she's obsessed with Tasuku, but second of all, why I believe Naota isn't someone particularly special to her. He's just a connection to her obsession. If Mamimi could have it her way, this would be Tasuku that she'd be nibbling on. This would be Tasuku that she's lounging with. It sure as hell wouldn't be Naota, and it doesn't matter how often he's technically saving her or showing up for her. Mamimi cares most about Tasuku, and with him now completely absent, her new main concern is finding ways to cope with that. Her first coping mechanism being the forced affection onto Naota, the second being her obsessive wishing for the city's destruction. Mamimi genuinely wants their hometown to be destroyed, and prays to anything she thinks will answer that wish. In the second episode, she's causing a string of fires around the city, worshipping Kanti in hopes that he'll burn everything down. In the fourth episode, she's cheering on the satellite bomb in hopes it'll succeed in total annihilation, saying an evil god answered her everyday prayers. And in the finale, she's going around with her little robot buddy, feeding him objects, causing further trouble for the people living here. There are only 6 episodes to this anime. 3 of the 6 involve her rooting for their town's destruction, and 2 of the 3 she's an active participant. I will say I don't think she wishes for intentional direct harm to him. This resentment for the city is likely due to the horrible situation she's placed in financially and socially. But Naota literally lives here too. So any and all harm that comes to this place is going to affect him. Even though technically the arson and the praying didn't actively affect Naota's immediate life, the intention behind wishing for the city's destruction and in it speaks for Mamimi's priorities. I think it shows that she's very clearly not happy with the situation she's placed in. But here she is, spending all of this time with Naota and funneling physical affection onto him. So what fucking good is any of this doing then? For her? For him? just to be a distraction from the actual problems in her life? I understand being lonely or feeling horrendous, but everything she's doing clearly isn't satisfying her. So something has to change, but she doesn't seem to be making any attempt to change. It looks to me like she's been nothing but a passenger in her own life, spending her time laying about. But you can't rely on serendipity to fix your problems. During this time of self-destruction and inactivity, she hadn't even realized that someone supposedly important to her had been changing throughout all of this. I believe Mamimi is somebody that is forcing Naota into a state of complacency with his life. Her presence enables him to lounge around and funnel his attention and focus onto her. When Naota finally swings his bat, she reacts with disappointment. To me, the significance of him doing this could be representative of him beginning to take more charge in his life, to finally do something. In the beginning of this episode, he does nothing, intentionally striking out every time. His teammates make comments about how they don't know if he's any good since he never swings. For Mamimi, this action, this moment, could remind her of his brother, not because of the whole baseball thing, but the act of him leaving, an indication that things are becoming different again. We see this idea further in the following episode where Naota seems to have a bit of an ego from his heroic act, with her confronting him about how different he's become. Naota changing doesn't come as any surprise to me. Fooly Cooly is a coming-of-age story. He's becoming further into himself. But I want to focus on Mamimi's disappointment to this. This disappointment tells me that she's obviously unhappy with Naota taking more initiative in his own life. Prior to this, I don't think it was ever on her mind. She was fully content with him spending his time with her loitering around so she can project her feelings for another person onto him. She doesn't want this relationship to have to go anywhere. She doesn't want it to develop into anything more than it already is, and she doesn't want it to become anything less. She wants things to remain as they were at the very beginning. Maybe her disappointment was never truly about Naota, instead scared of losing the last connection she has to Tasuku. Assuming Naota's comment at the beginning is true, that the introduction was a regular thing for them, then they've probably had this routine for some length of time. Several months maybe. If Mamimi is holding Naota in place, complacent with how things have been, Haruko is the person that agitates everything and forces both of them to move forward. This is a good thing, but this doesn't mean that Haruko is also a good thing. In the case of Mamimi, I think her actions towards Naota are selfish, but aren't necessarily planned. What I mean is that I think she isn't intentionally abusing Naota, or even really thinking about the repercussions of what she's doing. She's just doing. She's living her life day to day and trying to find the most in it. This doesn't absolve her of the abuse, but from my perspective, it at least lessens the gravity of it by some amount. So she's bad, but I wouldn't call her evil. Unlike Mamimi, we're introduced to Haruko when Naota meets her. We see the beginnings of the friendship and how it evolves over the story. There isn't all this history that's slowly shown and told to us. This is what makes Haruko unique for him. She's somebody completely new. There isn't this, holdover relationship that he has with Mamimi, so there aren't any expectations of how they should act with each other. Along with this, Haruko also gives Naota special attention from time to time. The emphasis on him being the first person she saw and the whole mouth-to-mouth bit are a couple examples. This places importance and focus onto him from her. It's clear that he begins crushing on her pretty quickly. I think his interest isn't only because of the attention and the whole new person stuff, but primarily because of the general vibe Haruko brings. If you compare these two relationships, the mood of their dynamics are pretty different. Mamimi's time with Naota seems to be a lot of lounging around. It feels much more placid or relaxed, while Haruko brings chaos and excitement. One relationship has history and his brother looming over it. The other is new, opportunistic, and spontaneous even. Not to mention that, in general, Haruko's inclusion into Naota's life has brought energy into it. In the introduction, he mentions how nothing ever happens in their small town, but now there's shit like this happening. The energy that Haruko brings isn't isolated to only him either. It's also injected into his household. When you combine all of these factors, the energy, the feeling of opportunity, the focus she has on him, It makes sense why he becomes enamored with her. But these traits aren't just in the banter, teasing, or physical chaos that Haruko brings. It also isn't an exclusively positive thing. There are positive side effects, I believe so, but Haruko has her sights on a very specific goal and will do anything she can to try and achieve it. The goal being getting the Pirate King's power. The method, finding someone that can eventually transport him through their head or whatever is going on here. My point is that everything Haruko does has that goal in mind. The only reason she's here to begin with is to try and get it. Naota's head seems to be the greatest chance of success for getting what she wants. I'm certain it's the only reason she sticks around and keeps coming back. I feel confident saying that because we learn of 2 other people she attempted to use. She tried it with Naota's father, but he produced nothing, so he was left for the roaches. And the results from the eyebrows guy were disappointing. So Naota, up to this point, seems like her best bet. Unfortunately for him, her method of making that happen is putting him into stressful situations, pushing him to and over the edge emotionally. There's this scene where she's interrogating him about the bandage and what's under it. The visuals and audio help emphasize the pressure she's putting onto him. Eventually, she hits a limit. Naota then tells her to stay with his father instead. Instantly, Haruko pulls back from pressuring and acts sheepish, replying that she saw him first. This push and pull, hot and cold attitude is probably what Haruko does the most. Like the entirety of the 4th episode, the baseball one. She's actively competing against him. She's on the other team as the star player. She's confronting him about his inaction. She's using his father as an emotional weapon, subjecting him to one of the most awkward scenes that has stuck with me ever since I first saw it. All of this completely fucks Naota's mood, and he certainly doesn't hide it. Eventually, she does reward him with personal batting advice, a moment where he actually smiles, happy to be given this kind of affection and focus from her, only to again have his father employed as a tool against him, which is what finally pushes him over the edge, producing results. These 2 regularly have this back and forth playful banter built into their relationship, but sometimes it escalates into moments like these. I think that experiencing extreme emotional highs and lows regularly cannot be good for anyone. Haruko creates these electric high moments that bring life into his day while simultaneously forcing or enabling incredibly low ones. This is what makes their relationship so polarizing. You have someone that you're prioritizing. They matter to you. You enjoy your time with them and how they affect you. Sometimes they're the highlight of your day, creating memories that may stick with you for years. Other times they act in a way that you genuinely can't tell if they even like you. And while they affect you, you can't tell if you affect them. It just isn't good. Earlier, I said there are good side effects that Haruko brings into Naota's life. The energy is one thing, but the important one is the confidence and initiative Naota starts to gain. Before her, he spent his time with Mamimi doing not a lot other than being a placeholder to force affection onto. The big thing that Haruko brings into Naota's life is Kanti and problems. But these problems force him into situations that he otherwise would have never been in. This forces him to experience growth and, I believe, ultimately force him out of the comfortable, rotting state Mamimi put him in. So much so that Haruko and Naota saved the city together, albeit Haruko had her own escape plan, showing the confidence she has in him, but Naota rose up to the challenge. After this moment, we see an actual change in their relationship. She's now more affectionate and seems less actively against him. But this is only in the beginning, as her true intentions are finally revealed to us. Haruko admits to not caring about the planet, and is only here for the Pirate King's power. The episode ending with Naota being used as something to, quite literally, help uplift her to what she actually values. Naota is special to Haruko, but not for being him. For being a device to help her get what she truly wants. Naota's relationship with both Mamimi and Haruko has been imbalanced and arguably abusive in nature. Both of them with their own goals, putting him into a bit of a passenger in the dynamic and I think more of an asset than a friend. But given the conflicting nature that each relationship has, it's forced Naota to assert himself and grow. In the latter half of the story, he does some things that comes as a surprise to people. Naota actually swinging and saving the city, causing everyone to be shocked by it. Eventually, Naota stands up for himself and asserts himself to Mamimi. He even stands against Haruko. taking the one thing she wants most. In Fooly Cooly, our protagonist places priority onto two people that do not prioritize him in an equal or similar way. His mood is dramatically affected by them both, and he's forced into terrible situations from them. Whether it's being used as a proxy for another person or as the current best device to achieve a goal, Naota, the person, doesn't matter to Haruko or Mamimi. You could remove him, find a proper replacement, and nothing would change for them. Despite the emotional turmoil and exploitation they put him through, he still cares about them. And at the end of everything, they're both fully gone from his life. Mamimi reconciles with him and leaves town to become a photographer. Haruko leaves the planet to chase after her escaped power. The two people that were such a priority for him, that he spent the majority of his time with, all this effort and attention, for better or worse, are now fully absent from his life. But he isn't upset by this. The ending isn't sad, instead it's kind of hopeful. I haven't spoken about the three friends that he has from school. They make some appearances throughout the story, Ninamori getting some focus, but beyond that, they're fairly inconsequential. There are scenes where he's with them, but primarily they're just side characters. These three have always been there, are always happy to see him, and they call him by his actual name. They were always there, even if he wasn't focused on them. So to have the ending highlight the people that actually treat him like an equal, like a friend, all while entering a new chapter in his life, makes everything feel okay. So is that it then? Is Fooly Cooly a story with a message about prioritizing the wrong people? Is it about honesty and learning to be honest with yourself and the people around you, even if it's something you don't want to admit? Or is it about trauma and learning to find ways to move past it? Saying that you endured something terrible, but through everything you've grown as a person. An excuse to justify the bad that happens in our life, to say that we became more resilient, mature, stronger, or some bullshit. I think maybe a bit of everything. There are very intentional decisions made with the show's writing, visuals, and overall presentation. It feels like every time I rewatch it, something sticks out to me a little differently than the time before, or that I notice something or actually pay attention to a detail that hadn't quite stuck with me until now. The show's pacing is absurdly fast, and the way they deliver information can be segmented. You're not going to understand everything or get why we're being shown something on your first watch. But maybe that's what makes it so special to me. There's just so much going on, and we're shown so much in such a short amount of time. It's filled with references from other animated works to just things in real life. It has these explosive, ridiculous scenes, these moments that let the music and animation drive the mood. Not to mention the sheer amount of innuendos they've stuffed into such a tight space. I don't think Fooly Cooly was ever made to have a specific meaning or message or anything other than just trying to have fun and packing in as much as they could. But in that chaos, they made something that has always stuck with me, and very likely will continue to. I think finding meaning in that chaos is kind of real. I'm probably pretentious to say this, but it feels like the most human thing someone can do. To look at a cacophony of bullshit and say, look at this, I found something significant. Or maybe I'm completely off the plot and fully up my own ass here. You can be the one to tell me. Thank you for listening, watching, giving me your time to allow me to talk about this old anime that has always been a favorite of mine. I always told myself I would never make a video covering Fooly Cooly, but, well, here we are. Honestly, there's so much I could talk about with this one. I wanted to try something different and do something a bit more focused compared to my previous writings, which is why I'm not covering, well, everything. So go and watch it or rewatch it yourself. Tell me your thoughts, your feelings, your fears. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.